Everybody, a little louder. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time again, a little louder, please. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. One more time, a little louder with your heart. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time again, very loudly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I can hear you at the back. A little louder. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I welcome all of you to His Holiness Candramauli Swami daily class, and thank you very much for joining this special series of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where we are relishing the nectar of Bhagavad Gita from last 17 days. And today we are going to cover last chapter, chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita. I welcome Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you. So Prabhu, I will be sharing the screen as you have suggested with Vedabase, and Over to you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So first of all, we request the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, especially His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj, that we can receive their grace so that we can speak something that will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, and that will also therefore nourish the soul and help us on our spiritual journey. So thank you all for giving us this opportunity to discuss this wonderful text of the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. What we'll do is we'll just say some prayers first, Mangalacharya, and then we will get into the discussion. Omagyanatamarandasya Gyanam Janashalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadekamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijanasetam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapatrabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Chapatitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so if you could go back to the verses, because someone's changed the screen. So Vrindavanath, Prabhu, could you bring it back to the actual verses of the Bhagavad Gita, please? Okay.
Can you see, Prabhu?
Yeah, now that's better. Yeah, because someone had moved it to another screen. Okay, that's fine. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so this Bhagavad Gita is taking us on a journey. Bhagavad Gita as it is. And in this journey of the Bhagavad Gita, we've now come to, as Prabhupada has titled, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Prabhupada would sometimes say that the last instruction is the most important. So within these 78 verses of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, as we reach the culmination of Krishna's discussion with Arjuna, it is a very beautiful, as all of the verses are, as all the chapters are, it is a very beautiful place because it is so deep and so rich with so much meaning. We will see as we go through these verses, we will see the effect of attentive hearing and following of Krishna's words. We will see that in the example of Arjuna. He's gone through this entire conversation, and then as we come to the end of this chapter, we will see how the conversation has transformed him. That's one point. Second, as we go through the verses of this chapter, we will also understand how these words are meant to be absorbed by the practicing devotee. Krishna will give the clue through specific verses towards the end of this chapter. And we will understand through that the way that we approach and the way that we should approach the process of hearing. We will also understand the glory of spiritual life through the last verse of this chapter, when Sanjaya is speaking and talking about what happens when Krishna and his devotee are together and what that leads to. But we will also understand something that is very, very analytical through these verses, because the 18th chapter, the verses of the 18th chapter, amongst their many topics, they will also talk about the modes and how we can understand different types of endeavor, different types of activity, etc. And Krishna is giving Arjuna giving us, through Arjuna, this understanding so that we can be more mindful and intentional to choose choices or to make options and decisions in our life that are literally favorable to our goal of Krishna consciousness. So this verse begins again, as other verses begin, they begin with inquiry from Arjuna. Text number 1, Arjuna said, "O my almighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation tyag and of the renounced order of life sannyas, O killer of the Keshi demon, master of the senses." So even this first verse is instructive. How are we meant to understand the teachings of Krishna consciousness? We read, we hear, but we follow the example of Arjuna. What does he do? We will see again and again in one verse after the other, Arjuna is inquiring. And that inquiry is meant to lead us to a particular outcome. So I may jump to different places in these verses just to really tie in everything. So for example, if we can go to verse number 70 in this chapter. So this chapter starts with Arjuna's inquiry. When we come to verse number 70, Krishna is explaining that someone who actually follows, who studies this conversation, so studies this sacred conversation of ours, worships me by his intelligence. Then he'll go on to say, one who listens, and this is interesting, he's giving a formula. It's not just listening. One who listens with faith. What does that mean? We listen with faith. We listen with the understanding that I don't know everything. And I have in front of me an authority who can clear all my doubts. One who listens with faith and then without envy. Isn't that interesting? In the world that we live in, why are we so reluctant to accept knowledge from other people? Often it's because of envy. I don't want to accept anyone else as an authority. I don't want to accept that someone knows better than I do. So Krishna is cutting both of these out. He says you have to listen with faith. You have to listen without envy. And then he says, if you do this, he says what? They become free from sinful reactions and attains the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. There will be elevation. So Arjuna has begun with this inquiry, and this inquiry is actually leading to an outcome. The outcome is shown in this verse 73. So Krishna has also asked in 72, did you hear with an attentive mind? Isn't that interesting? The methodology is here. Again, listening with faith, hearing with an attentive mind. And Krishna asks, and are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? See, he's checking, has it worked? Have you done this? Have you heard enough and inquired enough that your doubts have been slain? And we hear echoes of this understanding in previous chapters, where Krishna is telling Arjuna, with the sword of knowledge, you're meant to cut away these illusions, this misunderstanding, these doubts. So Krishna is asking you, did you hear properly? And then look what Arjuna says. Now, Arjuna is explaining the result that we are meant to attain by the process of attentive hearing, listening with faith, listening without envy. He says, Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. First point, I have regained my memory. Again, echoes of previous verses or previous chapters. Krishna has explained to Arjuna previously that if one does not hear properly, if one is attached, dhyato vishayam pumsa, right? By contemplation of the objects of the senses, one leads to attachment. From attachment, lust develops, etc., etc. Bewilderment of memory, Krishna will explain or has explained previously. And then one falls down. So here, Arjuna is saying the opposite. My dear Krishna, my illusion is gone. I've regained my memory by your mercy. And look at what he says. This is so important for us. I am now firm and free from doubt. And I'm preparing to act according to your instructions. I was listening to, there's a book. The book is called Swami. and it is Pastimes of Srila Prabhupada by one of his disciples, Brahmananda. So Shiv Maharaj is reading and just elaborating on that book in some classes that he's giving in Mayapur recently. And Brahmananda recalls how Prabhupada would ask the devotees to do certain things which you could say were really very ambitious. So he may ask the devotees, go and tell the government that they should give us this entire building for free, and we will use it in Krishna's service. Or, you know, in one of the pastimes, Prabhupada was saying, you know, tell the government that they should give us all their criminals, and that we will give them prashadam, and we will reform them and make them people who have first-class character in society. It's very, very interesting. If there's faith in the instruction, if there's the understanding that we are acting on the order of Krishna through Krishna's representative, then we can make the greatest endeavor, because we understand that we are not the doer, which is another point that comes up in this particular chapter. So we can understand that actually, if Krishna wants, he can do anything and everything, because everything is under his control. Prabhupada told His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj that Krishna could give you the entire North America tomorrow if he wanted to. He said, but would we know what to do with it? So there is an implicit understanding which comes out in this 18th chapter, that we are actually only one of 5 factors of action. So if we can go to verse number, I'll just get the particular verse up. If we can go to verse number 13, please. This Bhagavad Gita, if we understand it properly, it's so incredibly scientific. When I first came across this understanding of the 5 causes of action, it was so incredible and it was so exciting. Why? Because if you look in the world, there are many redundant philosophies. And what do these redundant or incorrect philosophies do? They are actually causes of suffering for humanity. It first begins with a false understanding of the truth, right? So it's a false understanding of reality. People are given a philosophy about life which is wrong. And therefore, they move out into the world. We move out into the world with a wrong understanding. And due to the wrong understanding, due to a false understanding of reality, we constantly try to engage in the world, and we constantly cause ourselves to suffer. One of the worst types of lies that the modern world has been told is that you're the doer. You can do anything just by your hard work, just by your effort, just because you feel like it, just because you visualize X, Y, and Z, it will all happen. Krishna is giving us a completely different understanding, and a completely accurate understanding. If we understand this point, how reality truly works, it immediately changes the way that we move around in this world. So what does he say? So text number 13, O Almighty Armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. Then he'll go on to explain in the next verse. The first point is the place of action, so the body. So that's one of the 5 factors of action. Then he'll say the performer, right? So the living entity who's in the body is another factor. Then he says the various senses. Then he says the many different types of endeavor, right? So the quality of our endeavor. And he'll go on to explain about endeavor in different modes, okay? But then he says, and this is really important, the wording is so essential, and ultimately, the super soul. He says, these are the 5 factors of action. So why is that so important, this ultimate factor? You see, it's not, there's so much nuance to our teaching. Now, if you go out tomorrow and you punch someone, you hit someone, and they call the police, you will go to prison, right? You will be arrested. So when we say that we're not the doer, we mean that in a particular sense. Why are we held responsible for our actions? Why is it that we say that when someone eats flesh, that they will have to take birth in a lower species and be slaughtered as a reaction? Because they made a decision which is sinful. So we are the doer in one sense, meaning that we are the desirer, but we're not the ultimate doer. Because even if we desire to do something, unless that activity is sanctioned, unless it is ultimately allowed by the supreme authority, nothing happens. It is just like sometimes people are paralyzed. When I was listening to this Swamiji, it was amazing because I came across all these details about Prabhupada that I had not known before, or maybe I'd heard but forgotten. You know, so at certain points, Prabhupada had heart palpitations. At a certain time, the left side of his body was temporarily paralyzed. He went through so many points. And so Shiva Maharaj was mentioning that even though one is a pure devotee, it doesn't mean that they don't go through these different experiences. Of course, they go through it from a different level of consciousness. But when we look at paralysis, what does that mean? It means that for the, let's say, not talking about Prabhupada, let's talk about a normal living entity. They will have a desire to move that part of the body. But that desire is not being sanctioned by the supersoul, is not being sanctioned by Krishna. So even though the desire is there, the outcome isn't there because there's another agency that has to say yes to that desire for it to come to fruition. So ultimately, all these other things, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different types of endeavor, all of these are there, but the most important is Krishna. And Krishna will go on to say, whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Then he'll be explicit. He says, therefore, one who thinks himself, and look at the word again. This is why it's such a beautiful philosophy. It's so accurate. One who thinks himself the only, that it's all about me, the only doer, not considering the 5 factors of action, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. That's our material disease. That's our material disease. We have these beliefs about reality which are wrong. And unless we are enlightened by this 18th chapter, we won't see things properly. Think about that. Imagine that you're walking through a landmine, but you're walking through the landmine blindfolded. Because you can't see things properly, you can't see where all the traps are. Therefore, one wrong move, bang. So many difficulties. When I was thinking about the power of Prabhupada's books, you know, elaborations on the Gita, his purports, commentaries, it is so amazing. One of the effects of constant reading, regular reading and hearing, is this Chaito Darpana Marjanam. The mind is cleared. The mind becomes purified by being in contact with the spiritual philosophy. When the mind is being purified, then we have a more, let's say, purified perception of reality. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will talk about the mode of goodness, and in the previous chapter, I believe it's chapter 14, or maybe even earlier, and he'll say that when the mode of goodness, it becomes prominent, he'll talk about how the gates of the body are illuminated. Right? That means, and then Prabhupada will explain in the purport, that means we hear things in the proper way. We see things properly. We taste things properly. All of these things, because the senses become illuminated and purified. And this is echoing that same understanding that when we don't have the spiritual knowledge and when we don't have the process of purification, we cannot see things as they are. So that misperception leads to so many, we first misperceive, And because I don't see things properly, I don't engage with things in the proper way. And because I don't engage with things in the proper way, therefore I suffer and terribly. And that is the story of human existence. In this chapter, the perfection of renunciation, Krishna will talk about how to engage properly. He says, and this is on the screen, text number 11, it's impossible to give up all activities. We sometimes hear that people think it's spiritual to just, I will do nothing and I will be peaceful, shanti. He's saying, no, that's not possible. You can't give up all activities. But what he says, you should renounce the fruits of the action. Yeah? And then he says, what happens if I don't do that? What happens if a person doesn't do that? Verse number 12, for one who is not renounced the threefold fruits of action. So the fruit of desirable activity, the reaction of undesirable activity, the reaction of activities which are mixed, they all build up and they accrue after death. There's an author, Dr. Ian Stevenson. Someone asked me recently, so when we were taking a group of business people on retreat, this was at the beginning of this year. So we took them to Mumbai. We visited like the Food for Life project there. We also visited the Bhaktivedanta Hospital. And so we were bringing them in touch with Krishna consciousness in various different ways, at various different projects. So we were in Mumbai, then we went to Govardhaniko village, and they had some talks by different devotees, Gauranga Prabhu, Radhanath Maharaj, and others, Nimai Leela, etc. And then we took them to Jaipur, so we saw some of the holy places there. And we were talking about this idea that there are many different ways in which one can engage in devotional service. There are many different things that can be done. It's not a question of being inactive, but it's a question of doing activity purely for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if not, these reactions build up. And they build up, and one has to experience the reactions of all those activities at death. And one of the major ways in which those reactions build up is that one has to take again another material body. This is the blind spot of human existence. People are trying to make the world a comfortable place within the prison cell. You see, trying to make the prison cell comfortable. We want to have some cushions in the prison cell. You know, I want to let me paint the walls of the prison cell some nice, attractive colors in the prison cell. It'd be wonderful if we have a few nice images or pictures on the prison cell or on the walls of the prison cell. Maybe have a nice carpet in the prison cell. It doesn't take away from the fact that we're still in the prison. This teaching is zooming us out. Rather than being like the frog in the well, it's trying to help us understand there's no point making the well a comfortable place. You should get out of the well. Because even if the prison cell has some nice carpet, it's still prison. And no matter how much we try to make the prison cell comfortable, it will never match the reality of being a free citizen in society. So, in the same way, we understand that no matter what we do within the confines of the material body and the material mind and the material world, it's not the same as the experience of being an eternally free, an eternally liberated, an eternally loving servant of Krishna in the spiritual world. That's the point that's being brought out here. We don't want to live in the world of reactions. We want to live in the world of love, in Goloka Vrindavan, where every word is a song, every movement is a dance, and every activity is an offering of love and devotion, an offering of affection towards Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is what Krishna is telling Arjuna, and this is that final instruction. This is what Krishna is saying. Arjuna, ultimately, sarva dharmam parityajya, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo, moksha yishami masuchaha. He's saying, Arjuna, abandon all other lesser forms of dharma. all varieties of religion. He's saying what? Sharanagati. And interestingly enough, we will see this is again the beauty, and this is the key that shows us that these teachings are coming from the same divine source. We see that just as Krishna is talking about surrender here, Krishna's representatives will also speak about surrender. In fact, Srila Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Harinatha Chintamani, he will explain that this Sharanagati, this surrender, this is the Swarup Lakshana. It is the primary characteristic of devotional service. Abandon all varieties, as you can see on the screen. And what does he say? You surrender to me, and what does he promise? I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions, do not fear. This is important. Why are we fearful? Why are we so fearful? We're fearful of reactions. We've done so many things in this world, and we know that so many things come back to us, and everyone's scared. What's going to come back to me? If I press this button, what happens? Because we don't have this knowledge in the society as a whole, we don't know about the science of action and reaction. We don't know that when I do this, this is what happens. So the vast majority of the living entities on the planet live a life of bewilderment. Take a moment to think about that. We should feel for such individuals. We should feel for such individuals. Without this knowledge, we live a life of bewilderment. We do something foolish. And in the heart, Krishna is telling us, because what? He gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Savasya chaham vidishanavishto matasmiti jnanamapohanam cha. He's telling us in the heart, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't go in that direction. It's a bad idea. Don't become attached to the fruits of your activities. Offer them to me, and then I can protect you. So we are like a living entity who's outside. I was visiting my father, because my mother passed away recently. So as I was going, it was raining. And I was thinking about this idea. You're outside in the rain. Krishna is like the person who's there on the opposite side of the road. So it's raining everywhere. You're getting wet, but there's someone on the opposite side of the road, and they're calling to you. They're calling to us, and they're saying, I know it's raining. If you come under my shelter, even though it's raining, the rain will not touch you. Even though it's raining, the rain will not affect you as long as you are under my shelter. That rain is the rain of the material energy. It is a rain of action and reaction. It is a rain of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi, birth, old age, disease, death. That's the rain that's coming upon us. And this devotional service, this is Krishna's umbrella, this bhakti yoga. Not only does it give us that protection, but it also allows us to know Krishna. And Krishna will make that point. If we can go to, let's see. If we can go to, yes, 1855. So Krishna is making that point very, very beautifully. And this is so important for the scientific understanding of Krishna consciousness. Bhaktyamana avijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. One can only know Krishna. One can understand me as I am, Krishna is saying. They can understand that I'm the Supreme Person only by devotional service. Again, scientific, because how do we know an individual? Can you force an individual to reveal what they like to you? No, you can only know them if they are happy to reveal what they're really like, what their real nature, what their real personality is to you. So some scholars and academics came to the manor. This was many years ago. And they were speaking to the devotees, and they turned to the GBC there at the time. And they said to him, one of the scholars said to him, why don't you change the title of this book? Right? So they were referring to Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada says. And they said to him, why don't you change the title of this book? He said, what your guru seems to be implying is that his Bhagavad Gita is the real Bhagavad Gita, and other people's Bhagavad Gitas are not proper Bhagavad Gitas. So the devotee told this academic, he said, Prabhupada isn't implying that. He said, that's exactly what he's saying. He said, in fact, if you look at the introduction, Prabhupada will say that at the time of going to print, there were over 700 editions or prints of Bhagavad Gita, releases of Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada is saying that they were all practically useless. Bhaktyaman abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. Only by devotional service, Krishna is saying, can he be known. So it's, again, the analogy. So it's raining, this rain of material energy. The Bhakti Yoga is this umbrella. It will give one shelter. It will protect one, as Krishna is saying, from all reactions. And when you're under the shelter of devotional service, you come close to the person who's holding that umbrella. Krishna is the personality who is holding the umbrella, the shelter of devotional service. And in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is calling humanity. I can see that you are being beaten by the downpour of material energy. And I'm calling you all to take shelter under this banner, this protection of devotional service. Now, of course, a key element of that protection is what will happen. Here, 58, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. That's very interesting. Not only will we pass over it, but he's implying that he's prepared to carry us. In fact, he says, I maintain what they have, I carry what they lack, in the previous chapter. If you become conscious of me, if you always think about me, become my devotee, what will Krishna do? By my grace. Again, 56, by my grace. 57, be fully conscious of me. All of these things, if you do this, if we engage in devotional service, Krishna's mercy will carry us. But if we don't, he also explains the nivriti. This is interesting. There's a whole psychology here. Poverty, nivriti. Poverty are the things to engage in. Nivriti are the things to avoid. He says, if you do not act, so verse 59, if you don't do this and do not fight, you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare, etc. So this is the point. He's saying these are the things to be achieved if you follow me. And these are the sufferings and the difficulties that you'll have if you don't follow. But just back to this point about only by devotional service can Krishna be known. This is important. Whenever you see atheists debating religionists, the atheists, they'll often talk about how if there's a God, why doesn't he appear? If there's a God, show me him. If there's a God, why does this happen? Why does that happen? They are like a person who lost their keys on a dark night. So, someone searching frantically for their keys. And you go over to the person and you say to them, what seems to be the problem? And they tell you, I lost my keys. And, I understand. Oh, you lost your keys. Yeah, I lost my keys and I'm searching for them. Okay, let me help you. And then you start helping them. You start searching in the same area. And you say, so tell me more. Like, when did you lose the keys? Exactly, where was it? Like, give me the details so I can help you to search for your keys more effectively. And then the person tells you, yeah, I lost my keys on the other side of the road. And you pause and you think, hold on. What? I don't quite understand. We're searching here, but you told me that you lost your keys on the other side of the road. So if you lost your keys on the other side of the road, why are you searching on this side? You're on the wrong side. And they say, I'm searching on this side because this is all that I can see. It doesn't make any sense. The pursuit of the atheist or the scientist is that they think they can understand everything, and they think they can understand if there's a God just by looking at the material sphere. It's illogical, because what Krishna is saying is that by definition, he's spiritual. They're trying to understand if there's a God by the empirical process. But what Krishna is saying is that he can only be seen and understand by the devotional process. So we're looking in the wrong place. We're looking in the wrong place. Only by devotional service can I be known. Krishna also tells Arjuna in another place, Bhakto sime sakasati rahasyam hetudu tamam. Bhakto sime saka. I will explain, he says to Arjuna, I will explain this rahasyam, this transcendental mystery to you, Arjuna. Why? Bhakto sime saka, because you're my devotee and you're my friend. So it is laid out on the pages of the Bhagavad Gita. It is laid out on this 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Krishna. How Krishna can be understood. Now, I'll just make one last point, then we'll open up for questions. One of the most beautiful things about Bhakti Yoga, about devotional service, about Krishna consciousness, is so beautiful. Why? Why is it so beautiful? It is because there's such a unique contrast. You go into most religions, and they will give a sermon, they'll tell you what to believe, and everyone will go home. You go into most religions, and when the sermon finishes, you start questioning the person who gave the class. Excuse me, you said this, but that seemed to contradict this. Or you said this, but it doesn't really quite make sense to me because of this. In many cases, they'll be offended that you're questioning and inquiring. But the Bhagavad Gita, what is it? Questions and answers. Arjuna submitting questions to Krishna to clarify his doubts and to help him to understand what to do. Srimad Bhagavatam, what is it? Questions and answers, right? Maharaj Parikshit inquiring from Shukadev Goswami. Chaitanya Charitamrita, what is it? Questions and answers. The Goswamis will inquire from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramananda Roy, Shrup Damodar will inquire from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So many dimensions of questions and answers, all towards what? All towards transforming the consciousness so that one freely engages in devotional service. This is alluded to in this particular chapter. If we can go to, let's see. If we can go to verse number, 63. A beautiful verse. What does Krishna say to Arjuna? Thus I've explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Now he says, deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to do. He wants Arjuna's free, heartfelt decision to surrender. Deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to. Karishya vachanam tava. The point is that in Krishna consciousness, Krishna wants our love. So he is going to explain and give all understanding. Our duty is to be sincere in receiving that understanding properly, acting on that understanding. And when we do so, we are able to, and we will naturally, freely, fully, lovingly surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the point. This is the idea. This is the goal. We're meant to surrender. And when we do so, what happens? Our illusions are gone. 72, if we go to verse 72. Again, Krishna has asked Arjuna those questions. Is your illusion gone? Did you understand? And then Arjuna says, yeah, I got it. Illusion's now gone. And look at what happens. When the illusion is now gone, this verse 73 is very important. To the extent that our illusions and doubts are gone, to that extent, we will act in a certain way. I am now firm and free from doubt, and am prepared to act according to your instructions. It is so blissful. It is so blissful, this conversation, that even Sanjaya, who's reciting it, he goes into ecstasy. So verse 74, Sanjaya said, thus I've heard the conversation of two great souls, Krishna and Arjuna, and so wonderful is the message that my hair is standing on end. He goes into ecstasy, just hearing, wow, this was such an enthralling, magical, incredible experience of hearing these two personalities speak, that I myself have gone into ecstasy. Beautiful, beautiful. There's so much richness in our tradition. And then Sanjaya, right at the end, if you can go to verse number 78, he will explain what happens when Krishna and his devotee, we're talking here, he says specifically Arjuna, but we can also say that when Krishna and his devotee are united in this one purpose of devotional service, what happens? Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be what? He says opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. And we see that reflected in Srila Prabhupada. When I was listening to this, these memories of Prabhupada, from the book Swami Ji, it is amazing. Prabhupada, early on when he comes to the West, sometimes he's asked by people, about his movement. And at the time, there was hardly anyone in the movement. But Prabhupada will talk about how he has thousands of students all over the world, thousands. But he knew that actually all I have to do is follow my teacher's instruction, my guru's instructions, my spiritual master's instructions. And just by doing that, everything else will be arranged. And that is the excitement. That is what we have to tune into. That's what's being told by us, told to us in this 18th chapter. Sarva Dharma Parityaja. There is no other shelter but Krishna, actually. Nothing else works. And we know if we reflect a bit on our lives, we will see how the material energy beats people up. We've seen it. We've all seen it. We've seen it directly. We've seen it indirectly. Even old age. Prabhupada said the material body is an embarrassment for the soul. Old age, you see the body go old and eventually diseased and die. You just watch it happening and you see it's going to happen to everyone. But the consciousness doesn't have to be at that same level of the body. So what we have been given, and we'll open up the questions in a moment, what we've been given is like an escape route out of the suffering of this material world. Not just an escape route out of the suffering of the material world, but we've been given an invitation into a world of ecstasy and loving service. In the spiritual world, I was listening to something recently, and anyway, without going into all the details, it was about how in the spiritual world, there are colors that we can't conceive of. Colors, we can try and think about it, but it just doesn't make any sense. There are colors in the spiritual world that we can't conceive of. There are experiences that we can't conceive of because they're completely beyond the material paradigm. So not only are we being given an escape route outside of the material energy and all the suffering in this world, but we've been given an invitation into a completely inconceivable dimension of reality, the real existence, where Krishna, his eternal associates, they're all existing and they all have eternal ages. Krishna has an eternal age. You in your spiritual form have an eternal age. There are family members. Get that. You actually have your own spiritual family members. You have your own particular rasa or relationship with Krishna, your own particular age, form, name, etc. Ekadasa Bhav, the particulars of our identity. And if we take this Krishna consciousness seriously enough, we can experience all of these things even while we are on this planet. Okay. So let me stop there and let's open up for any questions or comments from this 18th chapter. Actually, first of all, we should ask if His Holiness Candramauli Maharaj, if you would like to say any words or make any corrections, please. Maybe Maharaj is okay. Maharaj is it.
Am I muted or unmuted?
You're unmuted, Maharaj. We can hear you.
Okay. One thing I can say is your narrations of Krishna's narration with Arjuna has caused my hairs to stand on end.
It's not me, Maharaj. It's your own real Krishna consciousness, you know. And Prabhupada's words, it's not me.
Very graphic and very clear understanding of how the living entity is trapped in the illusion of this material world, with a very, what we say, comprehensive, systematic explanation of the process of getting out.
Anything good is your mercy, Maharaj. Thank you for the encouragement.
But the one thing that I hope is that, as our Krishna told Arjuna, are you now free from doubt? Are you ready to act? And if we're not ready to act, that means we still have doubt yet. So take it in that way. And after hearing this and understanding it, if there's still some doubt, continue to work to clear that doubt by questions and by more exposure to the philosophy.
Wonderful. That's such a powerful point, Marge. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, it was so exciting because it's the formula for how we can get rid of our doubts. See, sometimes we think that I've got doubts and that just means things are difficult. But there's a methodology, as Marge is saying, for the doubts to be taken away. And the doubts, we can consider they are like anchors that anchor us to the material world. So the more that we cut away those doubts with the inquiries, with the practice, with the exposure to Krishna consciousness, then we can be released into an entire new world of spiritual experience. We shouldn't feel that it's boring. We should know that there are all these spiritual gems, realizations, experiences, because Krishna says, as you surrender unto me, I reward you. That means, and Krishna is unlimited. The spiritual world is unlimited. The treasures of Krishna consciousness are unlimited. That means the more we get free of these material anchors of doubts, the more we are moving into this world of unlimited spiritual experiences and realizations, which will deeply nourish and sustain us in ways that nothing else can.
Yeah, those doubts are like demons. Krishna has killed one demon called Madhusudan, which is, so he's labeled as the demon of doubt. And then Krishna mentions in the end of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that for the doubting soul, there is neither happiness in this world nor in the next. He says, in an explanation of that verse, it's better to be in ignorance than to be in doubt, because ignorance can be destroyed. But doubts seem to have a conception of illusion that is impressed upon the person's consciousness. And it's harder to uproot doubts than it is ignorance in general. And that's why Krishna says, you know, and then the Acharyas explained that verse in that same way, that it's better to be ignorant and even incompetent, but to be doubtful is really is a type of condemnation. And therefore, to uproot those doubts requires continuous hearing and attacking the doubts from where they are, in the root of the doubts. We may not doubt the philosophy, we may not doubt the practice. We may doubt our ability to achieve it.
Wow.
We also may doubt whether I have to give up so many things that I don't want to give up, and therefore that's another doubt that comes. It's like another big anchor, even bigger than the other doubts. But as long as we keep hearing and keep questioning, trying to analyze and understand what is the doubts that I have, they come up, you can see them. You think about them, when you perform your activities from day to day, you'll see certain things. That doubt is a symptom of intelligence, but that doubt that stops us from performing our duty in devotional service is a symptom of ignorance rather than intelligence.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's very, very enlightening. There's a lot for me to meditate on and think about. Thank you.
Keep hearing, keep reading, keep associating. Don't give up. Don't become overwhelmed with the inertia, thinking that I'm incompetent. Every soul is competent, but every soul has to take that shelter which will give them the freedom from the rainstorm and not just get a rain hat and still getting half wet and half dry, you know. The umbrella's needed.
Very good.
Thank you. Beautiful analogy.
Thank you, Maharaj, for giving us the opportunity to do some service and to get some self-purification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
So thank you, Bhuta Prabhu. Thank you. Really amazing edge. Maharaj also highlighted. It's very, very important. Like few points just came out. Attentive hearing with full faith. Yeah, as you mentioned. Then focusing on surrender. Yeah. And then devotional service. So how we can be protected in that umbrella of Krishna shelter. Yeah. And as you nicely summarized with the point that everyone is looking for happiness, but at the wrong place. And they are forgetting that our only shelter is really Krishna. And as Maharaj concluded with that, we should really not have any doubt in terms of faith and trust on Krishna and the philosophy and the scriptures. So
I just want to elaborate on that point that you've just shared, because I think it's really important. And it's just something that I've been trying to understand more about myself. You see, when someone engages in material activity, in this verse, in this chapter, Krishna will talk about desirable, undesirable, and mixed activities. So it's really important because we don't often take a long-term view. So someone may think, I'm going to do this material thing, but it's material, but it will give me some pleasure. But what Krishna is trying to point out to us through the entire Gita is that when you do something material, you'll become attached to it. And you'll also become attached to thinking that you're the body. So now I've done this material thing, I've become attached to this material behavior, and I've become attached to thinking I'm the body because I'm getting the enjoyment through the body. So now what that means is as my body gets older, I'm going to suffer a lot more. As my body gets diseased, I'm going to suffer a lot more. As my body dies, I'm going to suffer a lot more. So we don't see that there's a bigger reaction that we're going to get. Now, of course, Krishna isn't saying that we should be inactive. What he's saying is dedicate your activities to me, because then even though you're engaging the senses, Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ukyate, but because you're engaging the senses in Krishna's service, everything gets purified. You can actually let go of it because Parama Drisvanivartate. By engaging the senses in Krishna's service, whatever you're doing, it will actually lead to a greater spiritual taste. So it's a liberating way of engaging everything in the world in Krishna's service, rather than the other option. The only other option is I try to enjoy my senses, and then I become a slave of this material world, and therefore I'm going to suffer a lot more as my body grows old, because I've done all these material activities, and part of the reaction of material activity is I identify more with the dying, diseased, deteriorating material body.
Very nice point, Prabhu. Absolutely. Very critical for everybody to really understand and meditate on that more and more we are going in the sense enjoyment or linking ourselves with senses. We are really using, we are going in that downturns. Yeah. Attachment with the body. We are going at the bodily level. Thank you, Prabhu.
I'd just like to add one thing.
Right.
Just to enhance what Bhuta Bhavana just mentioned. He's actually picking out the philosophy that's mentioned in Nectar Devotion, where it's explained every material action has two reactions. One, according to the quality of action, it's either good, bad, or mixed. And the second thing is the tendency to commit that same activity is enhanced or fortified by that activity. So every time you do something, that tendency is sort of rooted in itself in the consciousness or in the subconsciousness, either one. And it is the tendency to do it again becomes just like a person. He's drinking. He knows it's wrong. He's suffering, but the more he drinks, the more he can't get out of it, because the tendency just continues in that same direction. That's true with all material activities. So. Nice point. Thank you.
No, thank you for your wonderful elaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu. So any devotee, if you have any questions, comments, realization, please, you can raise your hand or you can type in the chat window. Also request all the devotee, if you can please switch on your video. That gives a nice interaction point. And I see Kanchanabja Prabhu, you have raised your hand. Please.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu, my obeisances. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my obeisances. Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu, thank you so much for the class, and my condolences on hearing about your mother. I really appreciated the realization that you had while you were walking to your father's house about the rain and the shelter of Krishna's umbrella. And I was thinking about Krishna's umbrella and the shelter of Krishna's umbrella, and also the point you were making about when Arjuna is free from doubt in text 73, when he's expressing, my illusion is gone and I'm free from doubt. And that doubt is that real trust and faith in Krishna, which is what Krishna was expressing in the earlier texts. And I think something that's very obvious that's in my life and the way I treat my Krishna consciousness and spiritual life, which I struggle with regarding all of this, which I was hoping for some of your clarification on, is that trust in Krishna and faith in Krishna, in the sense, I feel that if I fully just said to Krishna, like expressed with my heart, Krishna, I trust you, I have full faith in you, I have fear and I'm scared about the kind of mercy I'll get in terms of the challenges. Like, what if something happens to my health, or something someone happens to my family's health, or something happens to my kids, and I know we hear that Krishna will never give you a test you can't handle, but that's where I don't have that faith. That's where I've got this doubt, because I just don't feel I can handle very much. So I'm just wondering if you have any tips on that or any pointers with that.
Thank you for your question. I would first of all like to request His Holiness Candramauli Maharaj, if you'd like to, share first as our senior, and then I'll just try and say something small after Maharaj, because he has,
I was just thinking of something that your Guru Maharaj said in this regard, which I'm sure it's embedded in your consciousness very deep. That prayer he makes.
Yeah.
You know the one?
Yes.
Yeah. My dear Lord. Go. I think maybe that's the answer, if you can. But I mean, that prayer takes full faith.
Mm.
But if you don't have faith in God, then where do you have your faith? If you only have partial faith in God, that means that remaining faith, that which is not there, is still in your own ideas. Krishna knows everything, past, present, and future. We're perceiving things according to our own experiences, and we're making judgments based on those experiences that certain things will happen. But if we trust Krishna, we know whatever happens is the best.
So just to add based upon Maharaj's answer, which is so beautiful, you can think about it this way. I mean, I've seen this. So a couple of things. I remember my spiritual master would sometimes do an exercise with the devotees. He would get them to think back to a time in their life where they distinctly saw that Krishna had come through and that Krishna was helping us. You know, maybe that you were going through some difficulty and you got an answer, or you had a question and you came to the class and then the question that you had was being answered in the class. You know, we all have those experiences where you can distinctly think, wow, that was Krishna. I was dealing with this particular issue, and then I went to the temple and this came up, or I was struggling with this, and then, Krishna arranged this. We all have these experiences. So one of the things that we can do is reflect on those experiences to remind us how much Krishna's been there for us already. It's not a new relationship. It's not like, nothing's ever happened. Krishna's never helped me, and we're just trying to go from a blank slate to have faith in Krishna. No, if we pay attention, we'll actually see, first of all, that when we've really tried to reach out or surrender or to take, shelter of Krishna, he's done amazing things for us. I mean, one amazing experience after another. I advise sometimes devotees to do an exercise where you write down all the experiences that you've had where you distinctly saw Krishna came through for you. To write them all down, and you'll be amazed. It's just one thing after another thing after another, and then you can contrast that to the times where we didn't do the proper thing, we weren't taking shelter of Krishna, and all the difficulties that we had. And then we can understand, right, who's your real friend here? Is it Krishna or is it Maya? When you didn't take shelter of Krishna, did you actually have a good experience, or did you find that the material energy beat us up? Like really just punched, kicked. You can see it. I've seen sometimes they'll think, oh, I won't really, Guru Maharaj just told me to do this. But that's not such a big deal. I'll do something else. And then you see, you just get punched, kicked, beaten, and then you even think, why is life so hard? And then you realize, hold on, yeah, it's because I didn't do what Guru Maharaj told us to do. But then you see the opposite. When you do what he does, when you do what the spiritual master told us to do, even it doesn't mean it won't be challenging, and you shouldn't get a proper understanding and reveal the mind and really try to understand. But you'll find that umbrella, one of the manifestations of Krishna's umbrella, is the instructions of the spiritual master. So I would advise you to look at that, and then what you can see is, yes, you may. What is it Prabhupada said? He says sometimes devotional service can be a challenge, but material life is impossible. So it means we
said that he said spiritual life may be difficult, but spiritual life is impossible.
Yes, yeah, that's it. Yeah, so and it's true, because the material energy, if you give into her, she just keeps beating you. It's not that you just get beaten. You get beaten and trapped and entangled and beaten again. And you see, actually, I've seen it. What happens is the freedom of the individual actually becomes less and less and less, because you're actually more and more tied in with tight ropes. So you actually get more and more restricted. Even think about it. It's there even in our understanding about what happens when a living entity, for example, let's say a living entity wants to parade around naked. Because they've gone so far from using the human body for what it's meant for, what happens? They take birth as a tree. So there's no freedom at all. They can't, it's not even that they're an animal and they can move around. They're a tree. You're stuck in the same one place for a long period of time. You can't do anything. So there's a natural principle. The more surrender, actually, the more freedom. That's actually what goes on. The more one surrenders, the more freedom they actually gain. And the opposite is also true. The more one does not surrender, or the more one does material activity, you actually become more trapped. You actually find that you have less and less free will, and life becomes more and more miserable, actually. So we've only got two choices, actually. It's actually surrender to Krishna or surrender to Maya. But surrender isn't something that we can negotiate. You're going to surrender. So who loves you? Who actually cares about you? Who's your real friend? Who actually has affection for you? Who are you? If we have no choice but to surrender, then who has the most affection? Who, if you surrender to them, will actually lift you up and bring you to the best outcome? That's the way I look at it. And Marge, if you want to say anything to that, please.
Yeah. No, I'll say I'm going to challenge you on that one.
Okay.
You have full faith, and I can understand it. And I also maybe are close to you in that same level, but he doesn't. So what does he need to do to get that faith?
Prabhupada says faith comes from hearing from the right source. So one way that the faith can be attained is by the association of devotees who are more advanced than we are. Because in that association, we see it's no longer just a theory. We see how Krishna is reciprocating with them based upon their surrender. And that can make it very, very tangible. And then also by following their instructions, we can also see how Krishna will actually do the same thing for us as we follow in their footsteps. So that's something that comes to mind. But Marge, please, because I'd like to learn more myself how I can improve.
The thing is, we have to associate. And if we're not associating with devotees, even if we have to do work in the material world, we're going to be associating with the non-devotees in a, maybe not in a full way, but there is the effects of that association simply by being in that arena and in that same mindset that they are, working in that way. So your faith in Krishna and your faith in devotees is being somewhat diminished in that other area of association. It's happening automatically. You can't even see it. It's gradually going down until you get to a point where you think, well, I'm miserable. I got to get out of here. Let me run back to the devotees. But don't wait that long. And that may never happen sometimes. Sometimes people they find that, well, I can fulfill my material desires here. I can't do that in Krishna consciousness. So I think maybe a little bit of Krishna association devotees and a little bit of the association of the non-devotees. But Lord Chaitanya was so adamant when Sanatana Goswami said, what is the first business of a Vaishnava? What is it? A Vaishnava Acharya. What is it? Asatsanga Tyaga, a Vaishnava Acharya. He said, give up asat, give up the association of the non-devotees and take to the association. That's the first principle of making advancement in devotional service. And if you have to, by way of occupation or lifestyle, you have to learn to not to associate and the same way associate with the non-devotees. That's an art. If you can do that, and then you can somehow rise above that negativity that comes by that arena.
Marge,
Yeah.
can you explain? Can you elaborate on that? Because I think that's such a key point. Because for many people, and I think many on the call, they have work in jobs where they associate with those who are not practicing Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness. So how can they be in that environment but not take that association? What does that mean, please, Marge?
I can talk theoretically, and I can also talk from the experience of others, but you're in that environment. You have to answer that question. You're doing it every day, but you're not affected.
Well, what I learned from Marge, is that we can be physically around other people, but we're not revealing our heart and opening up in that sense. And therefore, we're not taking on the values of the material society, you know? And then what Marge is also implying is that we should, as much as possible, go actively looking for higher spiritual association in the association of devotees and do what the Nectar of Instruction says, inquire confidentially and reveal the mind. And that way, what we want that association to permeate our heart, that value system to permeate our heart. And we want to be situated there so that even if we're around people who are not practicing Krishna consciousness, we're not taking on their value system, but we can actually share the value system of Krishna consciousness, the values, the principles, the lifestyle of Krishna consciousness. So we elevate rather than being brought down. But Marge, is that correct understanding?
The point is, and it's this idea of association and opening up your heart and feeling that the persons you are with are also similar to you and you can share more like your private experiences or your personal struggles. You can't do that with the non-devotees. So if you do, you'll go in that direction. But even in the association of non-devotees, that you're somewhat aloof from that, you have to associate with devotees. You have to perform the 6 loving exchanges that are recommended by Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instructions. If you don't do that, you're going to want to have that loving exchange with the non-devotees, because it's natural. It's part of human existence to have that loving exchange. If you don't do it with devotees, you will do it with the non-devotees. And then you go down.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Very clear, with strong conviction. Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it, Maharaj and Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. Since my Guru Maharaj left, both of you are the personalities that have kept me going, and I'm taking shelter from. So, looking forward to having more and more of both of your association.
Well, I appreciate Maharaj's association so much. It's I thank you so much, Maharaj, for saying that, and also the way you said it. I really feel that's so important. It's so important. We have to actively associate. And I love the point you made also about how if we're not doing that, then even in the association of those who are not practicing Krishna consciousness, we will be affected even though we're not aware of it. So it's a subtle thing. And I think that's why I picked up from what you're saying. Many of these things are so subtle that we don't realize it. And we think, oh, it's a neutral thing, but it's not neutral.
No. Yeah, nice point. Yeah. But you're the example of how to stay aloof from that, what we say, material tendency and still be in that environment.
That's because I get your association, Maharaj. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. Honestly, it's your association.
Well,
it is.
But it's your association that I'm really resonating on now, because everything that I'm saying has been inspired by your talk on the Bhagavad Gita. I didn't have that enthusiasm until I heard your class.
I didn't have the enthusiasm until I got your mercy and your presence was there, Maharaj. So I think it's you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanchanabja Prabhu. I hope it answered your question. Great.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Is there any other questions? There must be some more questions out there. I see a few thoughtful looking faces.
Any questions?
So I have one question related to what Maharaj mentioned, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. As per Nectar of Instruction, sorry, I'm just diverting, but linking to the same point, the previous point, 6 loving exchanges. Yeah. And this question actually is raised many times by devotee. One of the 6 exchanges, accepting charitable gifts or accepting gifts from the devotee. What exactly that means?
Just giving and receiving gifts. It could be anything. It could be a devotee gives you a gift of a spiritual book. Let's say one of Prabhupada's books that they say, look, here's something that I was reading by Prabhupada. Would you like it? It's that loving exchange. It's that bonding and that coming together and that mutual nurturing of each other's Krishna consciousness, which is really the essence of it. We want to. I didn't mention this, but it was in my notes actually. So in this 18th chapter, I'll just bring my notes up. So give me 1 second, because Krishna alludes to this actually in verses 1868 and 1869. Krishna will say, those who share this secret with my devotees, they're the most dear to me. And that's really powerful. He's saying, if you share this Krishna consciousness, if you encourage the other devotees to be Krishna conscious, you'll be extremely dear to Krishna. You know, so when we give and receive gifts, we're also encouraging each other in our Krishna consciousness. So that's my understanding of it. But Maharaj, would you like to?
Well, to take it to another level, these are called 6 exchanges of love. So what you're doing is sharing something that is dear to you with someone else. So this item, or whatever it is in one sense connected to something that you love and you like, You wouldn't give somebody something you don't like just to give it away. That's not charity. That's not exchange.
Mhm.
You usually give something that you find edifying or enlivening, something that you had a nice experience with, and you share it with others. So that's a symptom of love. That's why it's called a loving exchange, because you're actually sharing your heart through giving that item, which is the means of by which you express your heart to that person. We do it by words, but gifts are also another element of that means of exchange.
Thank you.
And in the Christian tradition, they have the Ten Commandments. And the second commandment is to love God. The first commandment is to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. And the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. So to love your neighbor as yourself, that means whatever you feel good for about your own life, that's helped you, that's brought you happiness, that's brought you spiritual advancement, something. When you share that, that's loving your neighbor. So we shouldn't take these exchanges as just being some function. It's actually much more than that.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu. I think it's very nice, really. I think it comes naturally. Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's all the information about the Krishna consciousness also. You want to share. That's like a natural tendency. You feel like, okay, I'm filled with, why, this is so nice, so good. How I can limit myself with this knowledge. So I think you just go for sharing. But it's good. Like the second commandment, I never thought that sharing and then doing this with never treating at the same level. That's really, really powerful and impactful.
Yeah, this has made me happy, therefore I want to make you happy, therefore I'm sharing it with you.
Very nice point. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. Silpesh Prabhu, please go ahead.
That applies to the first one too. We're revealing one's confidential thoughts and receiving confidential thoughts. It's the same principle. It's a loving exchange.
Thank you, Maharaj. You reminded me of something when I first went to Mayapur, year 2000. It was Gaura Panim, and my spiritual master, his name is Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was giving a seminar called on devotional community, like strengthening Vaishnava communities. And he talked about the six loving exchanges, and he said that he has a cabinet where he keeps things just to give to devotees as gifts in order to honor their existence and their Krishna consciousness. So it reminded me of that particular point that you shared, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
I was with your spiritual master around that same year when we did an initiation outside in the open area of Gita Nagari.
Mm-hmm.
And every devotee that came up for initiation, Maharaj gave him one of his personal items as
Wow.
a part of the initiation.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Maharaj. That's nectar.
Yeah. Giving prasadam and receiving prasadam, it's a lovely exchange. Because Krishna is the medium by which the exchange is being made. Prasadam is non-different than Krishna.
Wonderful. I'm inspired by what you're sharing, Marge. I would encourage everyone, if it's something that you don't do, if we're not doing, I would encourage you. Let us all make a conscious effort to make sure that we practice these six loving exchanges regularly. Because I find that they make such a huge difference to our consciousness and to our Krishna consciousness. So yeah, please, if you give a gift to someone, reveal the mind, share to a devotee, give something, prasadam, receive prasadam. It makes such a huge difference.
I would just like to add that in the Grihastha ashram, it has become a regulative principle that the Grihasthas, at least one time throughout the day, every day, they have to give prasadam to another living entity. That's that's one of the regulative principles in Grihastha ashram. You can give it to an animal or friend, family member, family members are getting it anyway, but some living entity. You can't find anyone, look for an ant on the floor and give him one of the crumbs to the cookie or something. When Prabhupada was on a morning walk, and one Grihastha came to Prabhupada and asked him, what is the most important activity in Grihastha life? And Prabhupada very enthusiastically didn't even wait. He just said, he stopped, turned to the devotee, he said, every time you're about to take your food, you have to go outside and call 3 times. Are there any hungry persons? Are there any hungry persons? Are there any hungry persons? And then if no one comes, then you can eat. And the devotee thought maybe Prabhupada didn't understand my question. So he asked again. And but Prabhupada very patiently, without getting disturbed, answered the question in the same way. And it's interesting, not interesting, it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but he still didn't get it. And so he asked Prabhupada the 3rd time. And Prabhupada very patiently, in the same mood, answered the same way. So that's a regulative principle, to share prasadam with other living entities every day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maharaj. It's very beautiful instruction. And also, I can understand that just by doing that, it will have some significant impact on our Krishna consciousness. It's very special. Sometimes we hear these things, but we think, oh, it's not a big deal. But actually, if we did it, it would actually we'd feel it would make a difference, a real difference.
It does, because it helps one detach oneself from the idea of aham mameti.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Which is the anchor in this material world, aham mameti.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful points. So, Silpesh Prabhu, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Yes, it's ironic. Just before I came online, I was actually reading the 6 loving exchanges because we're having a meeting for Bhakti Vriksha today on devotee care. And I want to speak about the 6 loving exchanges. And Krishna has arranged that we're actually discussing it right now. So that's amazing. I just wanted to ask if you can expand a little bit more on inquiring confidentially, what it really means to inquire confidentially. I know in the purport it says inquiry from them about the confidential service of the Lord. But can we also inquire about other things in the devotee's life as well?
Great question. Maharaj, would you like to begin?
Well, I've seen devotees who take these verses and turn it into seminars, particularly on that particular verse. And although Prabhupada doesn't indicate it, it's indicated in a less direct way, where loving exchanges means to share something Krishna consciousness. In other words, to tell someone about Krishna, tell someone about the process of pure devotional service, like that. And one is speaking, one is hearing. But the less direct, but also inclusive aspect is that if one is struggling from some aspect of executing one's devotional service or something in the material world, some difficulty, they can reveal their heart and mind to a person who they feel that they is confident to give them the right answer, and someone they can trust. Trust means someone who will not speak it to anyone else. So these two characteristics are there. So that's part of a seminar where that is also included. Opening up your heart based on the struggles that you are encountering, either in day-to-day life or in the practice of Krishna consciousness. If you like, Silpas, I can send you a very detailed graph of that verse, which breaks down into different categories. And then you can use that, and that might help you in getting more, insight on how to present your talk.
Please, Maharaj, I really respect that and appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Silpesh Prabhu. Prema Kishori Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Bhavana, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. Please accept my humble obeisances. I am actually going to take maybe detour. The question is from 18 chapter verse 54. I need some clarification. It says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, na sochati na kankshati, sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labate param. So is Brahma Bhuta over there, that Atma or that devotee is not a pure devotee yet? It's just an eligibility to become a pure devotee.
Maharaj, would you?
That's yours. You got the 18th chapter.
Okay. Okay. So, so this is a famous verse. I'll just read the translation. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me.
And there's a similar verse, if I may interrupt, Bhavana Prabhu, in 5th chapter where Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Sunicheka Sapakavicha. I don't remember. Like basically, person by virtue of true knowledge sees with equal vision the stone, the cow, the dog eater.
Mm-hmm.
So the same confusion there also I have.
Yeah, so Prabhupada in the purport to 1854, he actually begins by explaining this. So I'll just read it out to you so you can, because then we can hear directly from Prabhupada. He says in the purport to 1854, to the impersonalist, achieving the Brahma Bhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute is the last word. But for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahma Bhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. In the Absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. So what Prabhupada, and Maharaj, please feel free to correct us, what Prabhupada is saying is that you can go high. It's actually one that can go higher than this in order to actually be engaged in pure devotional service, according to the purport. Is that understanding correct, Maharaj?
Yeah. Sometimes they say that this verse is on the level of ruchi, which is not on the level of pure Pramali.
Yeah.
There's still more to go. But on the level of ruchi, they're entering into spontaneous devotional service. This verse is more or less the beginning of spontaneous devotional service. Indicates that those symptoms of a person who is moving now into spontaneous devotional service.
And so is the Vidya Vinaya Sampanne verse then, Guru Maharaj, if my understanding is correct?
Well, I'm not sure, because one can superimpose that consciousness on one's own mind and see like that. But then again, I think that verse talks about one who has actually realized that. So if it's on a real level, then they're on the Brahman platform. Yeah. Yeah, even the Gyalis can come to that stage because that's in that section. It's more like Gyana Yoga anyway. Not Gyana Yoga, but it's an element of just philosophical realization based on being freed from all material activities. It's more like the stage of Gyana, one stage of Gyana Yoga. Seeing all living entities as spiritual beings, whether you're doing it theoretically or whether you're realizing it. Theoretically, you're not there, but when you realize it, you're there. In other words, you're on the Brahman platform.
The eligibility criteria to become a pure devotee, but it's not like a pure devotional service per se. Thank you.
And nor is it indicated in that way either. I think what Bhuta Bhavana mentions in Prabhupada's purport is clear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Gurumaharaj. Thank you, Bhavana Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for your question, Prema Kishore. Beautiful question, beautiful answers.
Thank you, Mataji. I don't see any questions. Devotee, if you have any last questions, comments, realizations, please, you can raise your hand now.
We would like to hear from Prem Kishori about, she's the one that inaugurated this whole 18 chapter series. Now we have completed it. So give us some ending words of encouragement.
Prema Kishori Mataji, you're on mute. Maybe if you can give concluding remarks, please.
I gave the idea and you made the whole city. I should be one asking you this question. Humbly.
You inspired everyone through this whole process. And I can say personally, I learned so much just doing the verses and then especially listening to the other devotees. It was really enlightening.
Yeah, I had fun, and I'm very grateful to you for giving this joyous 18 days. We're looking forward for more.
We want to congratulate Prem Kishori for that insightful idea of bringing this to the devotees, because I think it was really powerful.
Well, thank you, Gurumaharaj. Again, I gave the idea, you made the city. So, you're the one who brought everyone together. But thank you. I think it's just an impetus. Now we have to go more detailed, though.
I thought, Mataji, we covered Bhagavad Gita in 80 days, then Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam now in some X days, and then.
I don't know. I can't. I'm not Bhagavatam.
Thank you to Bhavana for giving us the conclusion, summing up the whole Bhagavad Gita in that in Krishna's summation in the 18th chapter.
Thank you for allowing us to be engaged and to have the association with yourself, Maharaj, and all the devotees. It's blissful. Thank you so much.
Everyone gained so much when we speak.
No, I gain from hearing from you and also trying to understand so I can serve the others. But honestly, it was really nice, very nice. And I loved your answers, Maharaj, and also the questions. The questions were really wonderful questions. Thank you so much, all of you.
Silpesh Prabhu is saying, can we do this regularly, please? It was amazing.
We can do it with Bhagavatam too, with selected verses in
That'll be nice.
a systematic way. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I think we are towards the end, and our last interesting section is still missing. So Srimati Mataji, the last two questions of the polling. So
Hare
over
Krishna.
to you, please.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances. Salvation to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Bhuta, Bhavana, Prabhu. Please.
I think we don't. That's inconclusive.
Is Guru Maharaj?
But the questions, they're inconclusive. I think we've really reached a conclusion already.
Yeah. I just have two questions to share with the devotees. This is the first one on your screen.
Don't want to do that. It's like eating your lunch and then finishing it and then go back and picking up and starting it.
I know, Guru Maharaj, yeah, but we already designed, and that's why I'm sharing.
No, don't do it.
Okay, stop. Yeah. Sorry.
Leave everybody with the mood that we just created. Don't create a new mood.
Sure. Thank you.
The mood is that we're congratulating all Bhuta Bhavana and Prem Kishori and all the devotees for taking part in this program. We're all sharing how much we've gained from it and how much we want to do something continuously to inspire all of us and ourselves in the future with similar programs like that.
It's wonderful. Thank you for allowing us to be part of the program, Marge. Thank you so much.
Great. So I think with that note, Maharaj, with your permission, Bhut Bhavana Prabhu, with your permission, I would like to close this session. And also request devotee, if you have some good thoughts, as Maharaj said, that maybe we can select few important verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, but any devotee have got any good suggestions, good idea, please do share with maybe Srimati Mataji or other leaders.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. And send them all to Prem Kishori and she can sort them out and then send them to me and we can discuss it, send it to Bhuta Bhavana, he can add it and he can, edit it. And we'll come up with something. We'll do it in a think tank way. So yeah, send your verses to Prem Kishori and if you have some idea how systematically the verses should be, approached, then we can do that also. Bhagavatam is also systematic in one way and very unsystematic in another way. So, and unsystematic because it's not chronological. But systematic is that it takes you deeper and deeper into the mood of bhakti centered around the lives of the pure devotees and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in these different incarnations, and it culminates ultimately with the 10th canto, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan.
How about other books, Guru Maharaj? Nectar of Instruction, Isopnishad, Nectar of Devotion.
I have information in terms of tests in these books, but systematic verses in terms of
I have it.
I can also do something, and anyone else wants to contribute, we can put it together and see what we can come up with. We could do something on what I would think would be nice would be Nectar of Instructions. It's 11 verses. Those verses are powerful. And and they're almost like the Gita in the sense you can really take them apart. They're really, you can break those verses down a lot.
I think that will be a great idea, Maharaj. 11 verses in 11 days.
Yeah. That way we don't, kind of burn anybody out for like a 2-month program,
Yeah.
Just like 11 verses is doable. Why don't we start on, let's pick a day for starting. When would be a good day?
There are lots
Maharaj,
of good.
go ahead, Vrindavan Prabhu.
No, I was just saying, like, I was reading out the chat messages only, Mataji. But please go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, Guru Maharaj, it depends on your schedule. Where are you going to be in?
Well, I'm going to be in India next week at around the same time. So I'm in London now. I'm okay wherever I am. I can join in.
May I work with Srimati and get back to you? We will get back to you and Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu and Vrindavan Prabhu.
Yeah, maybe you can pick an auspicious day to, inaugurate the program.
Nityananda Triyodashi on Wednesday.
Nanda Triyodashi?
No, wait. Yes, Guru Maharaj. I'll discuss with Srimati and
Yeah,
Sheila.
you guys are in charge. Okay.
Not in charge, the event planners. So
And we would love to have Bhuta Bhavana become, integral part of the whole presentations.
I'm happy to serve. It'll be for my own purification, so I'm more than happy to be involved as you wish.
Yeah, Sri Upanishad is, those later verses are wow. But they're good. And when someone said to Prabhupada after the book was published, well, they said, this book is for the devotees only. Prabhupada said, no, it's for everybody. But the last two verses about, it's like the highest form of bhakti. But it's nice to see how Rupa Goswami really, in those 11 verses, how he put practically everything systematically in the whole process of pure devotional service. Verse number 8 is like, the acharyas, they take that verse and give classes on it.
24 hours a day, chanting and reading.
The purports are quite extensive. It might be good to take 2 days for some verses. Like the first verse, I think you could take 2 days. Second verse, the third verse, practically every verse maybe. And the same speaker can do 2 days in a row, and then another speaker can do the next verse for 2 days in a row, like that. These are just suggestions.
yes, Guru Maharaj, noted.
I think we'll discuss internally. We'll come back with the plan. Prema Kishori Mataji has got a task.
I have faith.
Great. Okay, with that note, I would like to close this today very, very great session and also completion of the 18 days Bhagavad Gita. So, Vanchikalpa Tarubhyascha Krapa Sindhu Vyevicha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai.
Hari 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 Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Vrindavan.
Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
March.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.